Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Haverin About. This episode is all about my visit to the health conference in Las Vegas recently, and some observations I made about it, and a discussion by Bethany and I, not only about what I saw at health, the experiences we both had there, but also about the value of these conferences. Now, our conversation went on a long time because we had a lot to discuss about it, both breaking down what happened there. So I've split this across 2 episodes to make it slightly more manageable. So you can find them. They'll be published a couple of days apart, but this is part 1. And then there'll be a part 2 where there'll be a continuation. The one apology I have to make to the audience is, for whatever reason, the audio on my recording of our episode is slightly degraded from what it normally is. So I've tweaked it as best as I can, but if you feel like it doesn't accurately represent my dulcet tones, then hopefully we'll try and make sure that doesn't happen going forward. But there was so much good content there, and the conversation flowed so freely, we didn't want to go back and re-record it. So here you go. This is Haverin About, episode about health and health conferences.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Haverin About. Hi, Dad.
Hi, Bethany. How are you?
Good.
No, you're not. You're suffering. Tell the audience you're suffering.
I am. I'm sick. I have some form of sinus infection, bronchitis, something. I don't know. I'll be using the mute function on my microphone a lot in this podcast, so I can just casually go and hack up a lung somewhere else.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay. Excellent.
The
You
sun
had a
is
great
shining.
week last week.
Yeah, all good. But you had a very exciting time recently because you were in Vegas.
Yeah, Viva Las Vegas. That's it. That's it. Singing is ended for today, although Bethany and I both love singing. Yes, I took one of my rare trips on an airplane, fully masked and Lysoled and sort of hand cleansered up to go with the unwashed masses over to Las Vegas to attend the health conference, which is HLTH, which we can get into the derivation of, well, why is health spelt with no vowels? But we'll maybe cover that later in the conversation. But yeah, it was a great time. I loved getting out of the house, so to speak, and being able to mix. I think you and I both enjoy elements of these big industry events, even if there is a price to pay in terms of the experience, not only of travel and getting there and stuff, but also upsides and downsides of being at industry events, and positives, negatives, pros, cons, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well, I think in today's episode, we're going to dive a little bit into the conference itself, Health 2025 in Las Vegas, but also talk about conferences in general, right? What really is what is the point of them? If you are a salesperson, what is the best way to kind of tackle them? If you are a sales leader or a decision maker in your company, how do you decide which ones to go to? There are so many now. There's like the big flagship ones, there's user conferences, there's geographical ones. It's all over the place. But let's jump straight in. What were your kind of initial impressions? Because I went to ViVE. No, I went to ViVE, but I went to Health last year. Right. And it was my first time. And I think you haven't been before, right, Dad?
No, not to Health. And it's kind of interesting because lots and lots of times when Health has occurred, because it's a more recent of the national conferences. Usually there were other executives who were attending from the organizations I worked for previously, or I didn't have a strong motivation or reason for going, or conflicted. And the way that typically you would go is that, okay, well, if you're doing Health, then I'll do Becker's and you divvy up who has to go and sort of like suffer the indignities of manning the reputation of your company at these kind of industry events. So I hadn't been there before. In terms of my impressions, well, I talked to a lot of people, and I think if you look at the history of Health, so let's talk about that. it really was created as a kind of reaction to HIMSS. HIMSS was very, very tech-centric, very led by the vendors. There were lots and lots of, and there was an increasing dissatisfaction from a lot of technical leadership as well as health system leadership, that it was getting a little too, sort of very inside baseball, very inside technology as it related. So health was created as a kind of reaction to that. And part of the motivation of the people who founded it, because it's been acquired since, so it's now part of one of these big international megalopolis, we hold conferences type organizations. But originally it was to try and mimic South by Southwest, which is SW in whatever, so no vowels. And so that is part of the derivation of how HLTH came about. It was kind of to try and follow that kind of branding.
To be trendy and cool. It's the cool conference.
Yeah. And really, it was the same recipe as South by Southwest, because South by Southwest started as an Americana type music festival type thing, and then grew and attracted a tech crowd, and then attracted a venture and investor crowd. And so it became a weird mishmash. And I know that, several years ago, you went to South by Southwest and you would probably recognize that very mixed audience. Mm-hmm. And so I think health was created along that recipe to try and bring together all these different constituencies and to be innovative and to try and sort of like bring a different vibe and do things differently from the established, being HIMSS. And I think that probably did work for a while. And whether this is because of the state of healthcare and technology innovation and investment right now, or whether it is because it's now owned by this big corporate, overlord master who is just trying to maximize how they can make money at health. Mm-hmm. I found my personal experience going as the representative of a health organization to do my objective, which was market scanning. I see what's going on. My experience, and understand, I've got 35 years of going to these big industry events, small country events, the whole, again, very niche, sort of specialist area events. I found it confusing. It was very, very difficult to find your tribe whilst you were there, because there were so many constituencies being served. And I think that was one of the things that as an immediate observation, I have plenty more, but I'll pause at that and let you respond as to how you found it.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying this episode of Haverin About, the best way you can support us is really simple. Click like, leave a comment, and subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. It really helps more people find the show, and it means an awful lot to us. Now, back to the show.
No, I mean, I agree. It's interesting because you have like these health tech vendors, right? Some of the big ones, a lot of small ones, some of the big ones that you would expect, not necessarily there, or small booths, or just they might have a person floating. But then you have like pharmacy stuff going on, and then you have payers, and you have a lot of VC and investment type folks. I think what's interesting is it does just seem a little bit like they've tried to say, okay, we need everything in healthcare, but then when you have just little splatters of everybody, can you really have a cohesive conversation? And I remember that even from last year, some people would be like, well, what do you mean HL7? What's HL7? And it's like, how do you not know what HL7 is? It's a healthcare conference. And then you'd look and be like, oh, because you have really nothing to do with healthcare. Yeah. And yet you're here.
Yeah.
And so, and you see that even in some of the speakers they pick. I love the caricatures. Very cute. It's very exciting to see like a Mark Cuban or a Rob Lowe. Or I think last year they had like Jill Biden and some Peloton instructors that I watch. Cool. Are they really saying much of anything valuable?
Well, and that was the other thing is, so I didn't attend a lot of sessions because, as I say, I was there primarily to look at your technology horizon scanning, your market scanning, to see what was going on, etc., and report some of that back to the folks I work with. And I talked to a number of people about the sessions I didn't attend, but of the ones I attended, highly produced, very pretty, not a lot
Great
of
lighting.
content. The lighting's amazing. I've got some great video B-roll that I'm inserting throughout this episode. So if you're listening in audio, I apologize. Please go to YouTube and you'll see all the nice, pretty video that I shot. But I think that there just didn't seem to be a lot of content. There was a lot of regurgitation of what I would consider the appropriate messages. A lot of very high-level fluff. Not a lot of content. There were some of the federal representatives there, even though the shutdown was in force. I think they dialed back their attendance and also their participation because of the shutdown. For our international viewers, technically the US government is shut down because it's not being funded right now, but we still continue. But for anybody attending, looking for amazing insights, and maybe this is just the jaded old, 35-year veteran looking at it going, ho-hum. But it was very ho-hum. I didn't feel that there was enormous enlightenment came out of it. So that was my impression of a lot of the content. There was also a fair amount of discussion about the juxtaposition because Sunday is the kickoff. Sunday afternoon is the kickoff. So there's opening remarks by the organizers, hyping everything up. Then
best
they
conference
had,
ever.
Yes. Yeah, healthcare is at an inflection point. Again. Yeah,
We're
sorry,
now
that
at the
was my again.
sextuple aim. We've gone up from triple to quadruple.
Quintuplet. Yeah, anyway. So the first session immediately after the opening remarks was Rob Lowe. And you're going like, okay, he's a kind of cool, interesting character, It's an interesting character. Why was he there? Well, he was there on the same stage as Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, who I suspect had paid for Rob Lowe to be there. Just my sneaky suspicion. And Rob Lowe was making this impassioned plea, which you can take at face value, for investment in cancer drugs and research in cancer drugs and what's happened. And, please support the pharmaceutical industry because it's really important we get these drugs developed. Yeah, absolutely. And ostensibly great, understood. There's 15 layers of nuance below that as to why that is challenging as a perception. And clearly it was practically sponsored by Eli Lilly. So therefore, from that perspective, you have to use your critical insights and go, well, okay, what are they really saying here? And what's the underlying messages here? And what's the motivation? Anyway, so immediately following, the next marquee speaker is Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban, for those of you who don't know, has
Mr. Anti-Pharmacy. Or big pharma, anyway.
I'm getting to that because that's why he's messaging. So Mark Cuban has a business whereby he's trying to reduce the cost of and the access to drugs. Literally, over-the-counter pharmacy/chemist drugs that people need on a day-to-day basis. And he has an online business and he's crazy and he's really created some serious disruption. And he got to market quicker than Amazon did with their model to do something similar. He went on a rant, as he usually does on this topic, when he's not ranting about certain politicians, etc. He went on a rant about the evils of the pharmaceutical industry and pharmacy benefit managers and the insurance companies all trying to rig the game against the patients, the true consumers of these drugs and medications. And
which we don't necessarily disagree with.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think it's great what he's doing because he's creating disruption. GoodRx, Amazon, have at it, guys. Yeah, do everything you can because clearly there is enormous fat and pork that is being absorbed by the now predominantly insurance company owned pharmacy benefit management companies who are ostensibly there to try and make sure that everybody is getting the right drug. No, they're not. They're there to guide you to the lowest cost course of treatment. That's their purpose. That's their business model, is to reduce that and then, try and make some money for their now owners, which is the insurance companies. And it's very, very fun. And I think there's a whole episode where we should talk about the way the insurance company is, the insurance companies, healthcare insurance companies are restructuring to maximize their business in the face of regulations being introduced by the government to try and limit their monopoly and to control that. They just get, they're like slime. They keep, literally and figuratively, they keep oozing into other parts of the supply chain to be able to try and maximize their profits. And that's a whole other episode. Now, I've got a couple of guests that I might try and see if we can secure for the podcast.
We might need to get the bleeping machine out for that one, because
because I think that we both have personal access to grind in terms of our experiences of that.
I think every single person in the United States probably does. I don't think that's a unique opinion.
Yeah. Bethany says, if you don't subscribe, I'm not allowed to make any more dad jokes.
Which honestly might be a selling point. But still, subscribe anyway, please.
Yeah. I mean, it's, Anyway, let's not get diversity.
So anyway, the comment,
the comment from people was, Rob Lowe, yay! Pharmaceutical companies are great. We should invest more in them. The government should be supporting their research. And Mark Cuban going, pharmaceutical companies and PBMs and insurance companies are evil. They're the face. So, and you would have thought,
and maybe that was on purpose.
No, I don't think it was.
But I don't think so.
The way it was set up was literally, hey, we got these two very headline speakers. And bear in mind, Mark Cuban was a last-minute addition because that slot was supposed to have been Oprah Winfrey. Oh. That's what they trailed for months. And then Oprah couldn't make it for reasons. And I suspect that her talk track would have been very much different. It would have been very much her personal health journey and experience and battling the weight loss, weight gain cycles that she's been through. I suspect that would have been a lot of what her messaging was. So no, I don't think this was programmed at all. I think it was Mark Cuban, emergency drop-in.
Yeah.
Thank goodness we got a headliner. And then you ended up with this jarring opposition. And I think that was part of the trick there is as to, who's your tribe, in listening to those opening keynotes.
Well, and I think that goes back to my impression of health when I went last year. And maybe this is because it's in Las Vegas, right? Which already feels, no offense to the Las Vegas Tourism Board, feels seedy sometimes, right? Like just walking around, you're like, this was a conference, even more so than HIMSS. At HIMSS that in the hotel next to whatever the conference center is on the top floors in those suites, the CEOs of all of the big companies have those suites booked out and they're having their secret meetings, the meetings where they don't want to see the CEO of this company talking to the CEO of this company or healthcare organization. That's happening. That's just how HIMSS is. But at health, you felt it even more. I feel like if you go to health, or really any of these conferences, but I think especially just because it's in Vegas and does feel a little sneaky, right? You're having secret rendezvous in hotels because some of these CEOs are there and it's like, well, they're not on the floor. Yeah. So clearly there's these secret meetings going on, which is fine and expected because when you get all those people to one space, that's fine. But if you go as a regular person or vendor or member of a company, kind of what's your ROI? What are you getting out of it? Right? If you're an executive, totally get it. You get to have some very nice dinners, have some very nice meetings. If you're just a person, a regular company going, is it even really worth it?
Yeah, because who are you getting access to? And I think that brings up a broader comment. And we can return to health because I did find some very interesting observations that I'll come back to. So let's put a pin in that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the purposes of these professional conferences. You need to evaluate what is your reason for going, either as an attendee or as a vendor participant to these conferences, and even as a speaker. There are people who are just on the speaker roster and they're just padding their resume with another speaking gig at, industry event. Why? If you attend enough of them, it does become the usual suspects type of parade and that you see at a lot of these events. And that can be interesting if they are truly, industry leaders, luminaries, or people with great insight. But you do end up in this kind of like I think I heard this speech 3 years ago from you type territory. So you need to sort of evaluate whether you are an attendee looking for insights or something else, and understand some people attend these events looking for a job.
Oh, yeah.
It's just they're walking around and almost like literally in the old days, they would carry their resume in their bag with them. And they would just literally be handing it out, trying to find their next gig. So that's a perfectly legitimate reason to go, because you get to doorstep a whole bunch of people that you may know or don't know as you're going around. Not everybody is going there for enlightenment and knowledge, but some people do. They're looking for that. And some conferences have CE credits for various professions, whether they're medicine, nursing, whatever, respiratory therapists, physios, pharmacists. There's a huge radiology technology conference that happens every November in Chicago. And, people go there because they get industry credit towards their continuing education. So I think that there are lots and lots of motivations for going there. For vendors going there, it really boils down to about 3 things. You're either being there because you need to be there from a brand awareness, market positioning perspective.
Yeah. Just raising your visibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes you will see people who will splash more budget in a given year because they feel like they're being ignored or they've got some big momentum thing they want to announce. And so that can be part of their motivation for going. So brand awareness and market positioning. Then there are people who are looking to try and generate leads. I think in our experience, Bethany, we know that is a very futile effort often at these conferences unless you go into the very specialist niche conferences. But at a broad industry conference, I mean, it's bad enough at HIMSS where everybody there is interested in technology. It's something like health. That I feel is like throwing your seeds, literally like in the biblical story, onto the stony field. You have absolutely no certainty that you'll get any traction out of it.
Yeah.
So I think the whole concept of going to these events for lead generation, unless it's very carefully planned, like either it's a very specialist conference or it's specialist enough, and I did this a lot when I launched for Allscripts in the UK, you fill up your calendar with meetings. You literally have pre-planned appointments on your booth, one after the other, either for discussions or demos or whatever it might be. But you aim to have a distinct purpose around your lead generation and pipeline development. So that is a legitimate strategy. But just going there with a bunch of tchotchkes and going, hello, we're here.
I know. Look, I worked for a company, great company, and we gave out Tide pens. Yeah. Which is a great giveaway at a conference because everyone spills stuff. Everyone likes Tide pen, like just great giveaway. But I had to ask our marketing team, I was like, look, I can scan everybody that's coming up if we just want to be able to say, we scanned 693 people. I said, but there's 500 of those 693 are like interns and like epic analysts who got bussed in from Wisconsin, or, that not nobodies, but they have no buying power. They have no influence. They got nothing. Do you want me to scan them? And some years the answer is yes. Like, look, we just need good numbers. And for whatever reason, the executive team or the investment team or whoever, we just need good numbers. And I'm like, sure, I'll scan everyone. And other years they're like, we don't care. Just give them away. We don't want to ship them back.
And I think the challenge is, I'm going to do a small digression, then I'll get back to the challenge. One of when I was leading Allscripts in the UK, we were based in Manchester in England, and there was one of the big industry events for health technology happened to be in Manchester. So of course we felt, being that it was in our home turf, we should make a splash. So I managed to convince Allscripts Corporate to give us enough budget to make a splash, have a nice stand, all those things. And sure enough, and we arranged lots and lots of bookings and had lots and lots of demos. It was very successful from that perspective. But the marketing people had said, we want to give away a nice giveaway. And I said, okay, well, what do you have in mind? And they went, well, we found a supplier that will print these custom umbrellas, like the short telescopic umbrellas that you have in the car or something like that. And I was like, as a giveaway? I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about that, but okay, yeah. And at the time, All Strips was kind of lime green color. And
great
so
color.
all of these 200 of these short telescoping, umbrellas show up. And they were nice. I mean, they weren't.
Were they lime green?
They were lime green. Yep.
I was envisioning
with
black
Allscripts,
with the logo.
With the logo and the Allscripts text on every second panel or something like that. And so they look quite nice, but they were really kind of heavily branded. I'm like, nobody is going to want those because they're so branded. Oh my goodness. All right, what are we going to do? Okay. So we're there on the booth. We've got all these boxes of 200 umbrellas. And it was a beautiful sunny morning. It was lovely. And so I was like, my goodness, yeah, so sunshades. I guess we're going to be hauling 200 umbrellas back to the office. At noon, the skies darkened. At 3, it started to torrent down. And the venue in central Manchester is a distance from the car park and the train station. So therefore, oh my God, we had so many lead scans.
You should have gotten a picture of just the flood of
and
lime
I have this
green.
wonderful picture. I'll try and see it and I'll insert it here. A wonderful picture that somebody took from outside of this river of green umbrella leaving the conference venue.
Take that, Cerner.
Yeah. Well, it was just one of those things where I went, okay, I don't know who in marketing was sort of giving offerings of chickens or something to the rain gods, but it worked. It was the most brilliant piece of stunt marketing that I've ever seen in my life.
I love a good booth giveaway. Not the ones where it's you put a business card to get an infrared mask or an iPad or something. Yeah. But just a really solid, that's why I love the Tide pen, because it was all we clean your data. And it's see, that makes sense. And when you would explain it, people would go, I like how clever. So whoever came up with that at Rhapsody, brilliant. Pens, fine. The little unicorns, is it Snowflake that does the unicorns in the little sequin jackets?
Well, that's the other problem at Health is that Health's logo for this, because it was the whole idea of being epic with a small e, is that they have this unicorn, which is partly VCs investing in unicorns and blah, blah, blah. Anyway,
yeah, sure.
It's weird. It's kind of Mount Olympus thing. It was interesting. And you'll see some pictures I've got here of what that branding looked like. But because of that, there were unicorns everywhere on people's booths. They'd obviously gone out and gotten their own version of a, sort of rainbow horned white unicorn and so on and so forth. So yeah, there was a lot of those giveaways. But I did say that I didn't see a lot of creativity on the giveaways at that event. I did get an Apple AirTag for free, so that was cool.
Oh,
that saved me, $40 or whatever they cost these days.
Side note on conferences, and maybe we need to do a conference-specific podcast, maybe ahead of the spring run of conferences. I went to a conference in Sweden this summer, and every other booth had a pick and mix stand, which for Americans who may not know, pick and mix is a 4x4. It's a grid of candy, sort of like at old candy stores where there has little scoops.
But like the movie
Swedish
theaters
candy
used to have before everybody got paranoid about germs. Yeah.
Right. For good reason. Anyway, it was the best because at 2 p.m., everyone just sort of was like, oh, we're going to go get some sweets now. And they just go to whichever booth was closest with a pick and mix stand. I was like, this is magical. Why don't we have... So I already told my company, because we're Scandinavian, I was like, first US conference we are bringing pick and mix, and we are going to save people at 2 p.m. when they need that little
wants
sugar
that
hit.
sugar boost.
In America, we say like and subscribe.
In Scotland, we say, don't be a numpty, just press the button.
Yeah.
The third.
Anyway.
Getting back to the third constituency in terms of attending as a vendor is if you are looking for investment, partnership, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And I think both you and I have been responsible in the past for lots and lots of partnering meetings, not with customers, but with other vendors and being able to interact. But also there's a lot of potential acquisition discussion either gets kicked off or developed at these events, because you've got the leadership and the boards and the investors of these different organizations. So I think that there are people there. And this is where health does have an active tribe, or tribes, I should say, whereby there's investor community who are there. And that's everything from big institutional investors, like every morning at Health, Goodwin, and this is not a promo for them, but thank you very much, they gave away a $10 Starbucks card to anybody who was going into the Starbucks. Literally, if you were going into that Starbucks just outside the main event, you were getting it for free. Yeah, if you wanted one drink, obviously. Because they were $8.95, for a latte. So yeah, enjoy it. I'm glad it was free. But every morning they give it away. So Goodwin spent an enormous amount of money in whatever they did there. They basically bought out Starbucks for the day, in each of the 4 days that Health was open. So I think that you look at that, you've got that level of investor, who's there at the equity investment level, all the way down through the VCs and the various VC companies to the angel investors who are just looking for the next place to stash their $150,000.
Yeah.
So I think that if you are in that ecosystem and you are looking for investment, then clearly the other tribe that you need to associate with are there at that kind of event. But equally, there are other venues where you could meet those people. I think just Health has become one of the biggest conglomerations.
A big hub.
Yeah. So for the vendor community, that's the thing is it brand awareness? Are you truly trying to engage with your market, either prospecting or you're scheduling lots and lots of your client marquee events, the equivalent of a mobile QBR, for want of a better thing, and that's a quarterly business review for people who don't know that acronym. Or you're an organization looking to change your trajectory, either through investment or by investing in or partnering with others. So I think those constituencies do appear at a lot of these big national conferences, and Health biases, I believe, towards that latter end. I think the other thing is Health is trying to talk about healthcare in a very expansive mode, and that's where the confusion comes in terms of finding your tribe. Because on the technology front, yes, they've got that. But ViVE, which they also run in the spring, is a much more technology-centric, or so I think Health has become too broad a canvas, with all of these different tribes being represented in it, with all of their different motivations. And that's evidenced in that dialogue that we had with, Rob Lowe against, Mark Cuban. Not deliberately, but that's how it ended up.
Yeah. So in walking around, what were some of the kind of bigger trends that you saw? I'm going to take a wild guess and say that AI was everywhere in a very vague way.
God, Bethany, you're so insightful. No, yeah, I absolutely was.
Smart. I am so smart.
And I think and it's rather similar. I went to ViVE along with you in the spring, and I went, obviously AI is there because it's a technology centered conference, and Chime is held there with it, which is the kind of the professional organization for all the CIOs in healthcare. Health, as I walked the halls, and I did that a lot because of the various meetings I had to do as my obligation to fulfill my purpose of being there, I would say 80% of the booths and their material that they had was AI enabled, AI powered. AI. Oh, sorry, that's my current joke is AI. I feel like when you scraped at that and said, so tell me a little bit about your AI, and the audience knows I know quite a bit. I work in an organization where I'm very involved in our AI investments and strategy and planning. And therefore I understand enough of this. No data scientist, but I play one on TV. No. As I tried to dig it, okay, so doing what? And what level of maturity and how rolled out? Either it was deer in the headlights, Luke's, because they clearly, whoever was manning the booth hadn't been briefed as to what the messaging was around their AI positioning. Or
which that is a topic for our conference specific podcast, not briefing the people in your booth. Oh, I hate it.
That and the
Let
trying
me
to get
read
the
from
attention
you
of people on the booth and they're on their
yeah.
phone. You and I are personal animus about that. Not with each other about that topic and people who do it.
Because we're good conference people, not bad conference people.
If you're there to do booth duty, you're there to do booth duty. You might hate it, you might be tired, you might be distracted.
Preach it.
That's your job.
Preach it.
I think that when the next category was the bigger companies, whereby it was a lot of gobbledygook. It was the corporate gobbledygook, whereby I could literally have said to ChatGPT, hey, give me a positioning for company X in terms of their AI strategy. And it would have gone, burp. And that's what I felt was almost coming out. It was the bottled messaging. It was very difficult to try and scrape away at what was the substance behind that. So I feel like it was a true representation of the AI hype cycle right now. And the fact that even amongst the investors, I heard multiple conversations from some of my connections about who are in the equity world, whereby they were saying, yeah, it's like if you slap AI and have a halfway decent pitch, it's like the multiples have gone nuts. So therefore, there is a feeding frenzy at the minute looking for that. And there will be a market correction and reaction to it, because there always is. Every time there's one of these technology hype cycles, it was blockchain, it was the Web 2.0. We've seen this movie
We did
before.
a whole episode about it.
Yeah. And so I think that from that perspective, that was what I observed. So I got tired of that and kind of drifted away from a lot of the kind of, what I call the main floor booth. The other thing is, like you said, there's also a lot of companies who are there who are not there in the hall. Or if they are, they've got a token representation. And actually, all of their discussions are happening in suites up in the Venetian and the Plaza. When we were at N4, we did that quite deliberately. That was a strategy we had as to how we were going to, have our meaningful discussions and not in the noise and hubbub of the main floor of the show. So I think that from that perspective, that is absolutely something that is there. So I gravitated out to the edges. I started looking for the small booths. I started wandering around trying to sort of find the undiscovered country, which is that wonderful Shakespeare quote about the future, being the undiscovered country, heavily referenced in the Star Trek movies by the wonderful, wonderful Christopher Plummer playing a Klingon, but never mind, we'll move on from that. But I do feel that there were some very interesting things here. And I saw three things that I think are worthy of mention, whereby it comes back to my core theme from a product management perspective, which is who's your market and what's the problem you're trying to solve? What are you trying to do here? Right? We've all heard the phrase, sell benefits, not features. If you've been in any kind of software sales, sell benefits, not features, should be tattooed on people's shoulders before they get a quota. It should be literally on everybody's, the forefront of their mind.
Don't tell me what this button does.
Yes.
Tell me what this button does.
So Future Stuart here, thanking you very much for watching this part 1. Please click on the next slide that you see and you'll be able to go straight into Health Part 2.